Welcome to the Rig on Wheels show featuring MVT, the show built for professional truck drivers, bringing you the latest insights, hot jobs, and tips to keep you moving forward. Powered by Mesilla Valley Transportation, the leaders in safety, fuel efficiency, and innovation, with over 1,600 trucks on the road. Let's hit the road together. This is the Rig on Wheels show featuring MVT.
Hey there.
Hey everybody. Happy Tuesday, happy Holy Week and everything. Of course, I am your host, Kameel E. the host and owner of the Rig on Wheels show, the #1 truck driving recruitment show in the land. Let's go ahead and manifest that. And then, of course, we have Robert Pierson joining us from Iraq. Where are you joining us from?
I'm technically in Houston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, no. But he is the VP over there at Mesilla Valley Transportation. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We are, of course, going to talk about diesel, but we're going to jump into these Trump tariffs, TT. But we are also going to talk about a little bit about freight, cargo fraud or freight fraud because of trucker stop in what she said on an interview. So I do want to kind of dive into what she said, and then we'll just get into our regular tips and everything when it comes to recruitment and retention and all of that good stuff. So let's first jump into the news. You want to go with freight first?
Let's go with freight here. This is via FTR, Transport Intelligence. Broker posted spot rates for dry van and refrigerated equipment in the truck stop system saw identical decreases during the week ending April 4th or week 14. After both had posted back-to-back gains for the first time since the beginning of the year, the decreases were fully in keeping with seasonal expectations. However, as van rates always fall in week 14. Meanwhile, flatbed spot rates rose for the 9th straight week, a streak not matched in the past 3 years, to their highest level since May of 23. If we go over to the DAP boards here, looking so far for April, the van rates are hitting 198. That's versus 199 the month before. Flatbeds at 260 versus 253 the previous month. April is at 226 compared to 227 on reefer. The breakdown for the DAP boards, spot rates gave back some of their recent gains with capacity outpacing demand. Flatbed markets also cooled, and while California produce volumes are entering the marketplace, truckload levels are about 3 weeks behind last year's pace. So a lot of this right now is kind of interesting. We're not seeing the normal surge that we would at this point of the year. It has not fallen off of a cliff. It's not horrible. It's not the end of the world, but there is definitely a difference depending on where in the country. Freight continues to be strong against the U.S.-Mexican border. With that said, freight out of California, they need the produce to start moving here because California is struggling freight-wise.
Yeah, they really are struggling freight-wise. Now, can you give us a little bit more insight as to why you think California is struggling? Is it the same thing as what we talked about last week, or
China? China.
Yeah.
That's probably a big piece of the equation there. It was already soft. It wasn't anything like post-COVID where there was a surge out of the port of Long Beach and Los Angeles. It's still relatively soft. It will pick up with produce intra-freight California or stuff being out of California that's not relying on any type of imports ports is doing fine. California is just soft. We'll have to see what happens, but that gets into the tariff. If you ask anybody what the tariff situation is going to look like 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, no one can really tell you that, and that uncertainty is hard. There is pent-up demand, but we have to see what's going to happen a lot with imports. Beyond just the tariff piece of this, because of the uncertainty in the marketplace, one of the metrics that should be looked at is on the foreign exchange market. So as an example, if you look at the foreign exchange market, €1 compared to a US dollar about a month ago was at 109. If you look at it, €1 compared to the US dollar is now $1.13. The foreign exchanges do not move that radically. So though that sounds like 4 cents is not a big deal, it's a significant deal when you talk about international business. 4 cents is a wild switch. So it's going to be interesting to see. Right now, that tells you there's a lot of instability in the international markets, and the US dollar continues to fall versus the yen, versus the euro, versus the Australian dollar. It does make things cheaper in a traditional world. It makes things cheaper from an export standpoint, that people can buy your currency at lower rates. But in a tariff world where you might not be sending out stuff, no one capitalizes on it. Trump's
Right.
got called primarily because of the bond markets, but the other piece of the equation is, let's take South Dakota as an example. South Dakota exports $1 billion a year worth of product to China. So they're kind of the weird anomaly in the marketplace right now. Now, a lot of that's oil based, but South Dakota is hindered by this because they actually export more than they import from China.
Mhm.
South Dakota, as an example, sitting on a lot of product where traditionally that's a big piece of their revenue that's not right now.
Yeah, it's definitely getting into scary times, and because we are talking about it, let me just kind of dive into this right here and talk about the effect on Trump China shipping fee plan. So when I was looking at transport topics and thinking of the maritime and the tariff plan, all of it works together. We know that trucking and transportation, but more importantly, trucking, because that's what we're into. So with the trucking and all of that, that's the last thing that's touched. Anything that is transported within the United States is touched by us, our drivers, right? But now that we have all of this tariff stuff that's going on, you have so much port congestion, which means delayed freight is happening. Inbound freight that is starting to have to shift to the Mexican and Canadian ports. Now we are seeing more port work coming out of Texas. Now I know that UMBT doesn't deal with that, which is good because you do what it is that you do best. So that is great, but I do feel like do you feel like, I guess I should pose this question, will it be a long-term win for the domestic truck freight or domestic freight period in the United States?
No. I mean, a lot of this is getting into long-term speculation. It over the last 20 years, the average distribution center has gone distance from DC to DC has gone from about 1,000 miles down to 300. There's a lot more intra freight, but in terms of stuff being boosted in the US instead of being done internationally, that's a 1 to 5 year process, depending on what the product is. I realistically, I think right now we're mainly focused on taking care of our customers, and our customers have demand to fill.
Yeah.
Long term, we'll have to see how this plays out. The problem right now is there's a lot of uncertainty in the business market. And when there's uncertainty, people sit on their hands. People don't make large purchases. We are a consumer driven market. We make up 37% of the world's economy, but make up 25% of the domestic consumption. Excuse me, I got those reversed. We make up 37% of the domestic consumption, and we're 25% of the world's economy. So what we do definitely matters on a global scale. But when people are uncertain, they don't make large purchases. So that impacts us, that impacts other countries. We're going to have to see how this plays out. I suspect Trump gets cooled down if there's some kind of big piece of news. So if we have a month where the jobs report comes out and it turns out we lost 800,000 jobs, that probably cools what they're doing in Washington pretty quick.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to run for office, you know the saying, it's the economy, stupid. It's the one thing that it doesn't matter if you're pro-choice or pro-life. It doesn't matter if you're in favor of the Second Amendment or if you're really big on gun control. The one unifying thing that impacts everybody is the economy. And if there's any type of big piece of news that jolts the general electorate, I suspect you'll see Congress start to wield some significant power in the coming weeks. Because at that point, I don't know that people have the intestinal fortitude to play this game of Russian roulette.
Yeah, because his cabinet is just being, yeah, you're doing good, or this is working out well. So he doesn't really have a group of folk that's really, and even if stuff is working out well, but he doesn't really have a group of people that's telling him what's going on this ground. But I do feel, as you're saying, that in Congress, they're getting pressure. They are getting pressure, and things are going to flip because businesses, these retail businesses, are getting hit with these tariffs. Even on Fox News, I was looking at a clip, and I might try to be able to find it during the commercial break, but a clip where Fox News wasn't even able to come back and say anything, but a guy that normally pays, I think it was $12,000, his bill was like 100 times that. And he just, how can you come back? It's nothing you can do. Nothing. What can be done then? Just nothing can be done then at all. But word on the street is that the electronics, there is an exemption, at least for a little while, on that. Because you heard Mr. Apple was bringing stuff over on planes.
Yeah, there was an exception for about 24 hours, and this is where the communication has been bad. Saturday on whitehouse.gov was detailed exceptions on electronics and chips. So Nvidia was going to reap the benefits of that. And then Sunday, literally less than 24 hours later, Trump says there's no exception. We never announced that. So part of the messaging's the problem here. Again, it creates the uncertainty in the marketplace. Most entrepreneurs, all the way down to your mom and pop living on your street corner, want clarity so they can create a game plan. I had a boss one time during the 2008 election that literally got through the election, and I knew he didn't vote for Obama, but he goes, "Oh no, I'm cool." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I just know what the playbook's going to be now." Half the time, it's not really. He goes, "Personally, I do care who wins and loses." He goes, "But from a business perspective, really, you just want to know the playbook so you can know what the game plan is over the next 4 years." And he goes, that's the thing about it, is in business, uncertainty is the cancer of any business. If you don't have a clear pathway, he goes, a lot of businesses go out of business, and you may cite lack of funding or lack of customers. He goes, for a lot of, especially established businesses, having no understanding of what the future is going to hold is what kills a ton of established businesses.
I agree. Is when we're not able to have a strategy, no strategy. It's me personally. Everybody knows that I'm not a Trump fan, even though I say that's my father. I'm not a Trump fan. But if I knew, if he could personally call me up, because I do feel like I'm special in America, if he can personally call me up and tell me what his plan is, then I will be okay. Either way, because then we would know how to strategize. I would tell you too, Pierson. I would let you know, so you could tell your wife.
Well, I will say this. With that said, uncertainty does create opportunity. And this is the other piece that I will tell everybody in the transportation industry. Your ability to be adaptable right now ends up being a major strength. So as much as times suck, I will always point out, if you turn on TV at like 2 a.m, you always have some infomercial where the guy goes, in these unprecedented times, and they give you some get rich quick scheme. We always live in unprecedented times. That saying doesn't mean anything. We are always in unprecedented times.
That's the reason why that is evergreen. That is an evergreen thing that lives on YouTube now.
Yep. So what I would say, though, is whenever times get where they're unpredictable, your ability to adapt quickly, to go where the money is, to go where the opportunity is, to find something and think outside the box of your comfort zone, be it as a professional driver all the way to a trucking company, becomes really, really important. So if you find that you're in a position that you're not making money, but you go, this is all I'm going to do, you're going to fail and you eventually go out of business. It's what happened with COVID. Now, granted, COVID was extremely unpredictable, but you see a lot of people came out of COVID better off than others, and not from a health standpoint, but if you look at trucking companies,
Yeah.
a lot of trucking companies, COVID was the death nail. They already had issues, and COVID finally made them either sell, go bankrupt, a number of factors. The companies
But
that came out of it much
yeah,
leaner than capitalized on 2022 because they were in a position to capitalize on it. As a professional in this industry, be it as an executive, a truck driver, all the way to the guard at the guard shack, if you're adaptable and can go, I'm going to go where the money is or where the opportunity is, this isn't going to be that bad, and you'll come out of it stronger.
I do agree with you. I 175% agree with you, more than 150, 175%, because
I was going for 180. All right.
I know, maybe not 180, but no, 175. And the reason why is we always have to be ready to add on and pivot. You have to be ready for that. And being an entrepreneur, business owner, or however you classify yourself, you are the owner of your destiny. So it doesn't matter who is in office or whatever is going on. You have to determine what your next step is going to be, because you're the only one that can do that.
Yep.
Literally, that's part of the reason why you are in business. So there's that. Something else that I wanted to bring about, and Truck Stop's CEO said this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I love that she even said this. Kendra Tucker, she is the CEO of Truck Stop, and Freightwaves is the one that wrote the article. And she basically did a interview in San Antonio just a few days ago at the Capital Ideas Conference of TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Association. And she said, basically, you always hear about freight fraud, but nobody, basically going to jail or anything like that. She said it's always the absence of legal consequences behind it, but everyone within the industry is suffering. And I think that we know that the small carriers, owner operators are suffering, but I personally feel that the megas get hit as well. And we don't talk about that part enough when it comes to freight fraud. People always talk about cargo fraud, but not the freight fraud. How do you feel about that? Does that hit you all? Does it, or you just don't talk about it? Is it just something and you just put on a spreadsheet and it's just part of what it is?
No, we rely on reputation and a whole lot of research. So in particular, one of the things that we recommend to customers, especially with cross-border freight, is there's a certain level of expertise that you need to go in there. So as people talk about near sourcing and all these companies coming in and wanting to get into the cross-border freight world, that is not as easy as you think that it is. Now, we're fortunate. We've had a lot of trial and error over the past 42 years that ends up being a major asset to a lot of customers. It's why we're sought out by a lot of customers specifically for that niche of the industry. Because if you simply go and say, I'm going to move cross-border freight, and you start sending equipment into Mexico, you may find that your equipment doesn't come back like that came back in there, or the freight isn't there, or a number of other factors. We have a lot of partners and affiliates that do a really good job for us in that end. We look at everything from the securement of our yards to the relationships we have with vendors to when we broker a load out. Do we know that have we vetted that carrier? Do we know that carrier? There's a lot of trust that a shipper gives to us when it comes to their freight. So there's a lot of steps that come into that. We're another carrier that's CPAT certified, so it's also the processes
Yeah.
involved in everything that you do. And so it's definitely talked about. A lot of times we're in meetings that are on a completely unrelated topic, but they're a piece of the puzzle that goes into the freight security network that we have in place. So it is definitely a hot topic of both shippers as well as carriers, vendors. It's one of the challenges for a lot of stuff. If you go and start a trucking company tomorrow and decide you want to haul freight, but nobody knows who you are, it's not impossible, but it's one of the challenges that you're taking in those early stages is you have no reputation. And this is not like the 1980s where you did what was called trip leasing. And really it was very
Right.
fly by night, and you'd pick up a payphone at a truck stop and haul a load with not a lot of checks in place. That's
Mhm.
not the case anymore. You're most likely starting out. You're calling up somebody like C.H. Robinson. You're calling up somebody like TQL, which comes with its own set of challenges. But you have no reputation. So just like you and I talk about having a credit score, you do as a trucking company, especially if you're a one-man operation or less than 5 trucks, you're trying to build up your credit score, your reputation score, because you are not really trusted right off the bat. You have to establish and build that up and build a network up. So even if you don't have direct shippers, you're building up that reputation network because you need it. And it's very hard to get away with stuff for very long. And it's still, you'll still have your random person, try to hold a load hostage.
Oh
And
yeah.
those people don't last very long. They tend to go to
Yeah.
jail and their trucking business goes away. And you can change DOT numbers all that you want. It catches up to you.
And I know that they do, but I'm with Tucker on this. The reason why it happens so often is because they don't go to jail. It's not enough that are getting prosecuted for it. And probably is not enough collaboration being done. Now, I appreciate you talking about this because you were able to talk about it on a large scale. And I think that when these conversations happen, it's just a lot of your small companies talking about it, and they don't know how to maneuver. So if you were, and I know you can't give legal advice, but if you were a smaller company, right? Gaines Trucking Company, how would you kind of move about?
I try to build a personal relationship with a direct shipper immediately right off the bat that I can fall into, even if it's just your outbound load and you're relying on brokers to get back to where you need to go.
Mhm.
Um, you do have a competitive advantage when you are a 5 truck fleet or smaller. You're able to offer something that a lot of mega carriers can't. Your face, and you're a person that can physically go into the office, go, I want to be your partner. Now, large multinational corporation may not give you the time of day, but if you can find and have a relationship with a direct shipper that you're able to come into in the front end and sell yourself on the fact that you're going to give a level of customer service they won't get from one of the megas,
Right.
that becomes priority number 1 right off the bat. If you can do that, it's a big deal because you are the unknown, and there's still value to physically going in and taking somebody to a steak dinner and trying to get their business. As much as we rely on Teams or podcasts and other stuff, being able to physically go and shake someone's hand has intrinsic value to this day.
Yeah.
So I would tell anybody that tries to start a trucking company of any shape or form that even if it's not your comfort zone, you got to do that off the bat. Because if you come into the relationship and go, I don't want to deal with sales, I'm just going to do broker freight. Good luck to you.
Right. And that is sales. Everything is sales, actually.
Yep.
And I wish more people understood that. First of all, sales is the best career to ever have in life. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm a little bit biased. But before we go to commercial, I have a major question to ask you. Your headset looks amazing. And I'm pretty sure that you took it from your son, the Joker.
No, but you would think that looking at it. No, this is I went to a luxury store this morning called, I believe you pronounce it Walmart. Very it's either that or I go to Target.
Target.
But yeah, Target, but it's a little bulky, but it's noise canceling and it will do the trick.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So
it turns out in the middle of an airport, they get upset when you just yell through your speaker system on your computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just maybe a little bit, especially in Amsterdam. That's a quiet airport.
Yeah, Houston is not quiet, but they will still take offense. Nothing quiet about Houston.
Nothing quiet about Houston, especially with me living here. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to commercial. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the hot jobs because Pierson has a bunch of them on the list.
Let's go.
At Mesilla Valley Transportation, every driver is behind the wheel of a late model International LT, a truck that takes comfort, convenience, and safety to a whole new level. Join us as we explore the impressive features of this powerhouse on wheels. The open road is full of surprises, and sometimes that includes unexpected encounters with wildlife. But worry not, the International LT has you covered. The front end protection guard offers an extra layer of defense, protecting you from animal strikes. Drive with confidence, knowing that you're shielded from the unexpected. We all know how important it is to keep our batteries charged, and our International LTs have your back. The Cummins X15 is equipped with an auto start feature, ensuring that your batteries are automatically recharged when they run low on volts. It's a seamless process that keeps you powered up and ready to hit the road. Disc brakes and an engine brake provide reliable and safe stopping power when you need it most. You can have peace of mind knowing that you're in control. Safety is at the forefront of what we do. Our International LTs are equipped with top-of-the-line safety features to ensure your well-being while out on the road. These tractors are equipped with Bendix fusion protection, collision mitigation, and lane departure warning. Achieving good fuel efficiency deserves recognition. With the International LT, your efforts don't go unnoticed. When you consistently achieve impressive miles per gallon, the International LT rewards you with increased speed. It's a little extra motivation to keep you pushing for better fuel economy. After a long drive, you're ready for a well-deserved break. With the International LT, you can enjoy your rest period in absolute comfort. Thanks to its auxiliary power unit, you can keep the driver's cabin heated or cooled just the way you like it. No matter the weather outside, you'll always find your sweet spot within our International LTs. The International LT understands that comfort extends beyond driving. It's a space where you can truly feel at home. I'm a big guy, and I have room to move around in here. With plenty of room to spare, the International LT accommodates even the tallest drivers. And there's ample storage for all your clothes, cooking essentials, and tools, making life on the road even more convenient. Speaking of cooking, bring along your appliances and don't sacrifice any luxuries thanks to all of our International LTs being equipped with built-in inverters. Dry your hair, make a smoothie, or play a game, all from the comfort of your truck. We take pride in our well-maintained fleet. And if by chance you do come across something wrong on your truck, you're never far from help thanks to our valuable relationship with Penske. With more than 750 brick and mortar Penske shops nationwide, their expert team is always ready to assist you. From routine maintenance to unexpected repairs, they'll get you taken care of and back on the road in no time. And there you have it. Just a few things about this late model International LT that make MVT the place to be.
While Joe was showing us the inside of the Blue Beast that is so large, I'm always so impressed with how big that is because it's built for a team, even though majority of the drivers at MVT are solo. So that's good because I remember when the trucks weren't so large. So sometimes when the drivers call in, they still think the trucks aren't large and we have to refer them to that video to prove like, no, listen to Joe.
Yeah, we definitely utilize the equipment for the job. So if it's one of our dedicated or local opportunities, you'll see a lot of day cabs used. If you're going to be spending nights in the truck, though, we want you to be comfortable, have spacious accommodations, along with the technology. And I can't emphasize how important that APU is. There's a ton of markets right now that you are unable to idle at night. So you being able to be comfortable, especially as the weather starts warming up, becomes really, really important. Additionally, access to the plug-in so that you can have a refrigerator, a TV, those accommodations that you'd expect at home become really important, because part of safety is you as a driver being comfortable.
Okay, cool. Oh, wait, did you say that MVT has local?
In certain scenarios we do, or home daily opportunities, but as we get to the hot jobs, we'll talk about that.
Okay, awesome sauce. Well, Terrell, which one you want to put up there? Okay, Division 150.
Let's start with Division 150. This is a fun division here with South Central and Southeast U.S., so really comfortable running areas. Presently looking for people that live out of El Paso, DFW, and Houston on this division. Going to average anywhere between $1,400 to $1,600 a week, weekly home time. These folks are going to do orientation most likely out of El Paso, Texas. So if you're out of Houston or Fort Worth, one of the big things to keep in mind is we're not automatically going to Greyhound you all the way to orientation. If flight accommodations will better suit you, we do offer flights from DFW Airport or Dallas Love Field out of Dallas, or out of Houston, out of Love Field or IAH, George Bush Intercontinental Airport, going to El Paso to make that travel accommodations easier. Our orientation, if you commit to a date and you show up on that date, we have a $500 orientation pay for a 2-day orientation. We want to make sure that your time in orientation is commemorative with the amount of money you'd make if you were running freight during that time period. Again, this Division 150, we're looking for drivers out of DFW, El Paso, and Houston, making $1,400 to $1,600 a week. So as you talk to your recruiter, be sure to mention that you saw the Rig on Wheels podcast and that you want to do Division 150 on this end. Let's go to that next division. Division 300, we're currently looking for drivers out of El Paso, Texas. This is a fun division because your home time is extremely consistent at 4 to 4.5 days out, home for your 34, and you keep the process going again. It allows you to have a life outside of the truck, and be it your significant other, family, friends, you're able to tell them exactly when you're going to be home. This leaves El Paso going towards one of the 4 points in Texas that you see on this map, either San Antonio, Laredo, Houston, or Dallas, goes up to the Colorado Front Range and then back down to El Paso. Again, that loop takes about 34 hours, takes about 4 to 4.5 days before you have that 34-hour reset, averaging about $1,680 a week. That comes out to $85,000 annually, approximately. Need about 15 more individuals on this division. So if you live out of El Paso, 90% of the freight on this division is drop and hook too. So we maximize your hours to their fullest. Let's go to the next division. Talking about home daily opportunities, we need 4 drivers that live in San Antonio and 4 drivers that live in Laredo. This is an exciting position that we have. Average, it's about $70,000 to $75,000 a year. You are home daily. The goal is to get 2 to 3, if we can manage it, 3 runs in per day. You're going to work 4 days and have 4 days off. So you're only working 50% of the days in the year. Now, you work hard in those days that you work, but what would you do if you got 4 days off in a row? You know, a lot of times with OTR, the challenge is you're exhausted. So when you get home, you sleep, you do laundry, you do errands, and before you know it, you're right back on the road again. The nice part with this, you get home every night. These are 7 a.m. start times. You work for 4 days. We maximize the hours that we can out of those 4 days. And then the next 4 days after that, you get to relax. So 4 days on, 4 days off. You're going to get home every single night. 7 a.m. start times on all these positions. We need 4 drivers that live out of San Antonio and 4 drivers that live out of Laredo. Orientation will take place next week in Laredo, Thursday and Friday. You'll come in, do your road test and drug test on Wednesday. You will do orientation Thursday and Friday next week in Laredo. And then you will go out and start making some money on this. Again, you are on 4 days, off 4 days, averaging about $70,000 to $75,000 a year with exceptional home time, where you're going to be out of the truck 50% of the year. But when it's time to work, you're going to have the freight to do a lot of drop and hook on this, like 90% drop and hook, to make sure that you're able to get those 3 runs in a day. So we're excited about 328. These positions will go quick. Ignore the part of the thing that says noon to 3 p.m. start times for the positions we're offering right now at 7 a.m. start times. So be sure to mention to your recruiter that you talk to at Rig on Wheels, you want Division 328. Again, 4 openings in San Antonio, 4 openings in Laredo. These positions are going to go quick, so you need to respond fast on these. Let's go to the next division, please. And last but not least, Division 440 have present openings out of Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Houston, DFW, San Antonio. If you're out of Memphis or Nashville, you'll do orientation in Nashville. If you're out of Houston, DFW, or San Antonio, you'll most likely do orientation out of Laredo, Texas, but possibly El Paso, depending on truck availability. This position is at about $1,200 to $1,400 a week, running this South Central, Southeast U.S. Expand a little bit more out of that. I can tell you this is our quickest growing division at this moment. A lot of new customers joining us on there, a lot of current customers expanding what they do. So from a job security standpoint, I will definitely point out this division is our fastest growing freight division that we currently have in the network. Drivers right now, we normally average about 2,700 miles a week, but we got drivers starting to push that 3,000 mile a week pretty consistently. So again, if you're talking to your recruiter, mention Division 440 to run that Tennessee, South Texas regional division that also crops down into Florida from time to time, depending on the customer. All this division and all of our division relies specifically on contracted long-term customers. I'm not saying we'll never take a broker load. There is definitely a time and a place to get a broker load rather than sit on your hands waiting for something to happen. With that said, the advantage with us is the pay is extremely consistent because we rely on a lot of no-touch and drop and hook freight from specific long-term customers on direct contracts. They are expecting our trucks. They're taking our trucks before they're brokering something out. They have contractual obligations with us. So you'll see a lot of those same customers over and over. A lot of these divisions, these are customers we've worked with going back 30 plus years. So they know our MVT trucks. They see us regularly. If these divisions are interesting to you, but you didn't see a market that you live in, we have a bunch of other opportunities in places like Jacksonville, Florida, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, Salt Lake City, just to name a few, on top of all the other places that we've mentioned. Additionally, though, the fine folks at Rig on Wheels work with about 40 other clients around the country. And so if it's not dry van, it might be reefer, it might be flatbed, it might be tanker, it may be a market that we didn't mention today. If you call Rig on Wheels, they're going to ask you what your wants are, what your needs are. Their job's not to place you in another trucking job. It's to place you in a career path that you're ultimately going to be successful in. So if you're tired of that trucking carousel where you're going from one carrier to the next, trying to find what you deem as success, give the folks a call at 281-968-3100. That's 281-968-3100. Or visit rigonwheels.com today. I'm biased. I hope they place you in transportation, but they will ultimately look for the carrier that's going to be the best place for you to be long-term successful.
Yeah, definitely. And like Pierson said, we will try to place you with MVT, but sometimes let's say that you don't have enough experience. Majority of the positions at MVT you will need about 6 months of CDL Class A experience. But let's say you're not quite there or your experience is shaky, things like that. We come up with a game plan for you, but we do have other carriers that will take you at as little as 3 months experience. So still give us a call at 281-968-3100, 281-968-3100, or like Pierson say, go directly to the website at rigonwheels.com and click on the tab that says driver application. Complete the Intella app, is the auto population application, and we'll get back to you either today or tomorrow. So that concludes our hot jobs. They're definitely waiting at the phones. If you're old enough, then you know that what that means. So they're definitely waiting at the phones for you to give them a call. But we're going to go ahead, go to commercial, and then come back and talk about retention and the actual what type of driver Pierson is looking for now in this season.
My name's Josue Fierro, and I am a recruiter, and I've been with Mesilla Valley going on 3 years now. Before I joined the Mesilla Valley Transportation family, I was at GCU as a loan officer. I feel that I acquired some skills there, providing customer service, learning, to listen to the customer, and learning patience. I think that helped me out right now where I'm at with Mesilla Valley Transportation, because I could actually apply those skills to what I do now, which is, helping drivers, getting them behind the wheel and getting them a job. So basically what I do here in recruiting, it's something good. We for sure give jobs to drivers, so it feels good, that we help people. Communication is great there in our department, from leadership to employees. We have a good working environment there, and it feels homey. Like, it feels like a home environment. It feels a family-oriented environment. So, yeah. I guess I acquired skills here at Mesilla Valley Transportation. One of them would be knowledge of the transportation industry. I was not aware of the transportation. I was just more into financing, and I think it's good to know that transportation takes a big role in our country, and we do something good here. What made me apply at Mesilla Valley Transportation was basically word of mouth, the reputation that this company has. You see them everywhere on billboards, the trucks on the street, you see, you hear them in the news ads. So you see Mesilla Valley Transportation everywhere, and you just hear from people here, local people, saying that Mesilla Valley is great, it's a great company to work for, and I was excited to join. My life changed when I joined Mesilla Valley Transportation in a big way. And one of them was them, of course, providing stability, giving me a peaceful state of mind, knowing that I could provide for my family, knowing that I could do what I do every single day without worries of, job security, in other words. And they actually helped me out a lot as well, as far as my daughter. She's 17. She wanted to get a first job in the summer. Marketing was able to go ahead and help me out, bring her in here as an internship over the summer, which she loved. She gained a lot of experience for her being her first job. Now she loves it. Now she wants to go to school for it and get a degree, so she's happy, and I'm happy. I would definitely recommend people to work here. Ever since I walked here the first day, it felt like a family-oriented work environment. Everyone's smiling, everyone's friendly, everyone talks to you like if they know you for years. So for sure, if I had to go ahead and tell someone, I would definitely recommend someone to work here at Mesilla Valley. My name's Josue Fierro. I'm a driver recruiter, and MVT changed my life.
Oh, that's our favorite MVT recruiter, and I am definitely biased. He talks to all of our drivers. He's the best ever.
Takes a lot of pride in his hires having success. So one of the things that we try to do when it gets into the world of retention is recruiting's job does not end once you're hired. We want to follow up with you. We want to understand, are you being successful? Was the job, what we described and what we documented and wrote down for you, accurate, and did you enjoy the change? He's an individual that does a really good job, though, beyond just 1 week, 30 days, 60 days. He will often call drivers a year later, 2 years later, because legitimately he's excited if you're successful. If you're not successful or something's not going right, he also looks forward to the opportunity to correct it. And that's one of the big things from a retention standpoint. If you want to look at a really valuable recruiter beyond just being able to put notches on the bedstand, it's being interested in somebody's long-term success, having empathy, and having them be wildly successful. And if they're not successful, not taking it as an insult, but looking at it as an opportunity that you get to fix it.
How long have you been in trucking?
Family's been in trucking coming up on 60 years. I would be January of 06.
So we're talking about 19 years?
Oh, crap.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I am coming up here in about a month based off of projections. I will have either recruited or overseen the hiring of my 29,000th person here in about 2 months.
That's awesome.
Oh, I will point out this. I have one of the best jobs in the world. There's a lot of ways you can make money in this world. You could go out clubbing baby seals. You could be a lawyer for some mafia guy. I got a great job. Yeah, I get to hire people for a living. At the end of the day, I get to better people's lives and say you're hired and put them
Yeah.
hopefully in a position that they're wildly successful at and have long-term success. Was not the career path I planned on, but it sure gets you excited considering that's how I get to make a living. And I really enjoy running into people I've hired over the years. First, about a year ago, I ran into the lady that was my first actual hire, a woman named Jan Dar out of Evansville, Indiana. She happened to be at the truck show. And we got to bump into each other there at the truck show, not at the truck show, but actually at the Waffle House near the truck show. And yeah, Jan would
Don't
have been my
recommend
first
Waffle
hire.
House. Look,
What's that?
I don't recommend Waffle House, but I do recommend the truck show.
Oh no, I recommend Waffle House. I absolutely do. If my chef at Waffle House does not have a violent felony, I don't trust that it's going to be good.
That's true, because they can make up some stuff that, yeah, I do agree with that point. But yeah, I just don't like Waffle House food. However, I don't remember my first hire's name, but she was a woman and she was out of Indiana and she was for CRE.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
When was that?
Back in 2020. I've been 15 years. So what would that make? It was January of
2010.
Yeah, 2010. Yeah.
Holy crap, 19 years. I didn't really put a number to it until you did that right there. Crap.
Yeah. It's been 15 years. This past January was 15 years. So whenever that was, yeah, it was. She was a woman, so I was like, oh wow, yeah, she was a woman. She had a few kids and things like that. She was a young girl. I do remember that. And
Yeah,
I
I will say this. I was fortunate with my first hire. Jan did a really great job for me. In many respects, she kind of recruited herself. And she was great with advice. Hey, you need to tell me this. If you don't know the answer to it, it's okay. Tell me I don't know the answer. I'll respect you more for telling me that and going and getting me the answer. As long as you go and like get me the answer and bring it to me in pretty quick order. She goes, I'll respect that more than you making it up. And I was very fortunate. The first driver I hired probably educated me a ton. I had some experience because of my family being in trucking beforehand. I had a lot of experience having empathy and legitimately caring, because I envisioned that I was hiring one of my relatives. How would I want to recruit my relative into a job? So I had that advantage early on there, but having her, hey, do this. Don't sell. You're not really selling me. We're having a conversation, and we're gonna see if you check my boxes and I check your boxes, and if we have enough check marks with each other, all you got to do is ask me, hey, it seems like you and I are saying the same thing. Do you want to come into orientation? And that call was probably better to this day, probably better than any training I could have ever got, paying thousands of dollars for.
And it's so funny that you said that when somebody kind of recruits themselves. My first owner op was like that. And we're friends actually to this day, and he lived right here in Houston, Texas. But I wasn't living in Houston when I recruited him. So I've been here now since 2014. So I wasn't living here then. But Thibodeau is his last name. And he's in Tanker now, Tanker owner now, but then recruited him for EPS, so he really recruited himself. He was like, do you have anything like this? And I was like, and then he said, okay, so let's break this down. He was just so patient with me. And but he was my first owner op recruit. And it was a lot of years ago. But when you timid, because I only at that time had only recruited company drivers, but he was able to kind of teach me a whole heck of a lot. But before then, I had recruited him, but it just wasn't for owner op. So he had trusted me a lot. I recruited him for a company driver position years before that.
I will say this: to be a successful recruiter, I think you also, just like the number of hires, you have to remember the times that you rightfully talk somebody out of a job. And what I mean by that is,
Yeah.
I was at a company and we had a lease purchase program. The lease purchase program for the right individual was a
right.
good program. It was not right for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I can remember at the time I wanted it, and we successfully grew this thing from 50
Mhm.
drivers to 250 drivers within about 3 months. But there was a lot of it where I was going to be judged not on what that number, that 250 number got up to, but what that number was a year later. How many of those people
Mhm.
were there a year later and successful in it? And ultimately, years after that, how many paid off the truck and viewed it as a
Yeah.
positive experience. And one of the things that I had, along with a couple of the recruiters I was doing this with, was really having that conversation of telling somebody respectfully, this is not for you. This is not for you. You are not going to be successful on this. And it became very apparent with the new equipment, it needed to be a team. The team needed to run the miles to support that brand new truck payment.
Yeah.
With a solo driver, it was going into a truck that was about 3 to 5 years old, still had a lot of warranty coverage that was available, especially, God forbid, if something unexpected happened, it wouldn't kill them. But it was having the conversation with the driver when they put, when they tell you, I want to control my home time. I need to be home more often. This program that we're talking about right now probably is not for you. It's not.
Yeah.
And it's having the authenticity and the empathy, and ultimately caring not so much about how many people you have in orientation, but how many people you're running into in the hallways a year, 2, 5 years later, having that mindset in mind, which makes you a much better recruiter. And I had a conversation with a couple third-party recruiters, such as Rig on Wheels, on this very topic, where they go, I may not be their coworker and I may recruit the driver, but if I do right, I'm likely 3 years, 5 years later, I will get a random driver referral. It will pay off
Mhm.
for me again because I'll get that referral and I'll get somebody else and if you do that enough times, it starts to become a domino effect. It won't be every driver, but all of a sudden you recruit 100 drivers. I bet there's 1 or 2 that gives you a referral that says, "Hey, can you help me like you help somebody else?"
Yeah.
Um,
Nimmer
and
and
so
Raven are both good with that. They'll
yeah,
give random referrals because of that. And sometimes it's not from drivers that they were actually able to hire. It's from
yeah,
drivers that they weren't, especially with Nimmer. It's
yeah.
drivers that they weren't able to hire.
It
Yeah.
is thinking about the job instead of short term, but long term. Just like
Mhm.
we talk on this program about drivers, the same thing applies to recruiters. Have a
Mhm.
long term strategy in place. If you are solely thinking about next week's class, you're going to fail. Plus, you won't enjoy the job very much either. It becomes very numbers driven and becomes really tedious.
Yeah.
On the flip side of it, though, if you take empathy and you legitimately, like I said, are recruiting somebody like you'd want your dad or your mom to be recruited, you will do significantly better and you will enjoy the heck out of the job a whole lot more.
It's funny that you say that, and it's not just because I'm biased, but Josue, when he was on the show quite a few shows ago, and we were talking, and he was saying how he was trying to recruit a few people that he knew, but as he matured, well, he didn't say this, but I said it for him. But as he matured in his tenure as a recruiter, he realized, he told someone like, no, MVT is not for you. And they was like, wait, don't you, get something if I come on? And he was saying it's not that they were bad drivers, but the culture would not match up for what it was that they were needing. So and we dove into that so much more, because once you understand the culture of the company, so whether you're a third party recruiter and you understand the culture of the company that you're recruiting for, or you're an internal recruiter and you understand the culture of the company that you work for, and then you are probing the driver well enough to understand what it is that they're looking for beyond money, then it's like one of the podcasts, and I was interviewing her on the op, and at first he was telling me why he was stayed at this company so long, leased on this company. And then as I was interviewing him, I realized that that's not what it was. This company allowed him to be a great father, and he was able to be present in the times he needed to be for his 6 kids. First of all, myself and the dispatcher started crying on the show. But that was what it was for him, and that was the culture that that particular company made. So when going back to Josue, that's what makes a recruiter right there, is once you figure out the culture of the company, and then you're able to match the driver to that culture, the particular driver to that culture. Because other than that, you're just doing straight numbers. And don't get me wrong, nobody's here to volunteer. You know, this is not a soup kitchen type situation, but it's important because these are people's lives. This is how they pay their rent, their child support, they take care of their mama and things like that. So you have, for me, take care of my mama. So you have to really, really take things seriously. And that's
I would ask anybody that's watching this, in particular drivers, if via comments on Facebook, on YouTube, or wherever they see this, I would like to hear from drivers in terms of your best experience with a recruiter. I don't care if it was with Masia or another company. Feel free to name drop the company. It's cool with me. But I'd be very interested to hear from a driver of your best experience with a recruiter. We always talk about the negative, and we all remember dealing with a recruiter that you go, this person's a monster. We all know that. I'd be very interested to hear from drivers on your best experience with a recruiter and why it was a good experience. Because I think most recruiters are honest. Most recruiters want to be successful at their job, not just in terms of their own finances, but in terms of the people they hire coming back to them later and going, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. The most rewarding thing in my career, hand on the Bible, is having a driver tell me, hey, I appreciate what you did for me. No better compliment than that. A year later, 2 years later, bumping into somebody that I interacted with, got to meet face to face, and having them come seek me out to tell me that. There is no better compliment in this industry than to get that from somebody that you hired. It's my wife may disagree because she handles the finances in the house, but it's better than any check that I've ever gotten in my career.
And once you realize that you really made a difference, because, you know, we might go through a lot of ups and downs in this freight industry, but once you realize that you've really made a difference, this driver that literally was on his last dollar or did not have a place to stay, or you go back to your one-on-one in recruiting where I remember a driver, he was in Carolinas, and I just assumed, you know, he was a strong, able-bodied man. So I just assumed he was able to do this dollar store run, and who wouldn't want to be home on a regular basis and all of this stuff. And he was just no, and I couldn't understand why he wasn't taking the company's phone call. And I said, just be straight with me. And he said, Kameel, I don't have anywhere to go when I come home for home time. And so that's when I said I needed to do better as a recruiter and go back to my recruitment 101 and do better with my probing instead of assuming, because I looked at his license and saw that he was this 6'2", 200 and some pound man and can really do this job. That wasn't the issue. It was that he needed over the road so he can have a place to stay.
Yep.
So
I will point out that overwhelmingly, if you look at the hires we've had in the last year, like 95% of the calls, the driver does 70% of the talking if it leads to a hire. Yeah. And what I mean by that is it becomes important as the recruiter to literally shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Listen, don't, you might lead the conversation, you may direct the conversation on where to go, because you're in that call, you're the expert of the process, because the driver's not hiring people for a living. But as a recruiter, you have to shut up, you have to listen, and the driver, it's like a test where the driver's giving you all the answers. If you shut up and you literally let the driver tell you
Mhm.
what's important to you, uh, you will A, have a much better success rate at hiring, but B, hiring the right driver that meets your operational needs, because you were able to pick up all the data points that you needed in order to go, hey, A, this is or isn't a good fit for you. B, this is what we're offering you that specifically you're looking for. Because
Right.
the pay package is not designed for everybody. There's parts of the pay package for different parts of the group or the overall package. Um, a lot of headhunters make the mistake of thinking that this is always a money question. It's not. Money matters. You need to be competitive. You don't need to take advantage of somebody. The money matters, but sometimes it's the equipment, sometimes it's respect, sometimes it's the home time, sometimes it's the geographic running area, sometimes it's, quite frankly, setting a long-term career path for a driver instead of another 3-month stop. But as a recruiter, if you don't shut up and listen and have that conversation of, hey, why are we talking today, and letting the driver answer that, um, you'll get some hires, but it's going to be very random. If they succeed or don't succeed, it will be random.
For women at MVT, is the seat in the truck.
I will tell you that that wouldn't surprise me. Um, I don't know how. There's been several carriers during my consulting days where we got into the debate about the seat in the truck. That you can go cheap on the passenger seat because a lot of people aren't going to use it,
Mhm.
but you need to invest in that seat in the truck. That
Mhm.
person that's driving your truck, the professional on the road, generally speaking, needs to be comfortable. Number one, from an ergonomic standpoint, they need to be comfortable. Number two, honestly, you can put all the bells and the whistle in the truck, but if that seat is your bare bones basic model, your driver is being told a message right there off the bat that you aren't important.
Yeah.
Think about this: if you're in an office setting and you become a manager for the first time, or director, or VP, don't they put you in kind of more of a padded seat in a corporate setting? Because they want you to know, hey, you're special to me.
Yeah.
You're different. You're above and beyond. Now,
Yeah.
trust me, I've seen some people get egos and big heads over a seat before. But if that driver is important to you, if you are telling that driver, hey, you're an expert professional, you are the
Mhm.
professional at moving 80,000 pounds down the road, and we value you, that message goes right out the window if you put them in the seat that comes basic in that truck. That tells them that that's not the case.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that is one of the many reasons why we need DEI and diversity when it comes through all sorts of things for trucking. But we're talking about the gender diversity because we want women within trucking, and we want them to be truckers. We need women that are going to design the seats because there are a lot of different reasons why we need different style of seats than Pierson would. And and you wouldn't understand, and you're not supposed to understand. So
I
when a woman
I
said
have
that to me,
I have more knowledge of it than I care to admit, because
yeah,
it's a conversation that comes up.
yeah. And I mean, when she said that, I was like, I totally understand because I went back and bought an Acura because the Audi seat, it wouldn't. I can't. It just I wouldn't be able to drive it comfortably for more than 25 minutes.
We have a driver out of Michigan named Berta, and Berta's been with us probably 18 years, I think, is the last conversation we had. It was 18 years that she's been with us. And we don't hire currently out of Michigan, but we did in the past. And
I
she's
love
just stayed all these years later. And she's a road warrior. She is unbelievably professional. She's one of the 350 drivers we have that have at least 1 million safe miles with us. And she is passionate about the seat, though. That is one of her things. We all have quirks and things that we're really caring about. Some people, it's other topics. But I can tell you that if you want to ever get her riled up, get her in a truck with a seat that's not up to her standard, completely for what she does for a living. It's not her being picky. It matters. But yeah, Bert is very passionate about it. She
Yeah, me
definitely cares
too.
about it.
That's how I am. I'm like, I can't. And I was like, I cannot. I mean, everything at that dealership was wonderful. They were gonna at the waterway. I go to the Woodlands, the waterway. They was gonna park my car special. I once a week be able to have steak, all type of stuff. I would be able to, when I get my car done, have a service, be able to have an office at the dealership, all the bells and whistles that a girl like me would want, but because of that seat, I could not do it.
Yeah. I will say it's one of the things that when we recently had a secret shopper go through our onboarding process about 3 weeks ago now, one of the steps that we care a lot about in that onboarding process is a lot of companies get stuck on tossing somebody some keys and going, that's your truck, have at it. We physically, at the completion of orientation, it doesn't matter if it's a small class or a large class, individually, we are going to sit with you, go through the truck, go through the equipment, go through how to operate the APU, have you sit in the truck, go over the pieces of the truck. And it seems like we're being a little anal retentive about it, but it's just like when you buy a new vehicle, wouldn't you? It's why you test drive it. Don't you want to sit in it and envision yourself in it? And if you're not comfortable, if you feel awkward in it, with a new vehicle, you're not going to buy a new vehicle if you feel awkward in it. Like it doesn't feel like you, considering the financial commitment you're making on it. Why would you? And so outside of it being your first vehicle and you're just happy to have a hoopty, outside of that time, you're going to want to be comfortable in that vehicle. And we're a big believer in that. It's one of the often overlooked pieces of the onboarding process, but I'd argue is probably one of the most important pieces is physically sitting with you in the vehicle, going from top to bottom, making sure you're comfortable with it. Before you ever see it, making sure it is detailed and clean. Because there is
not
nothing,
maintenance clean.
That's right. And so that is making sure that at the end of the process, as you complete orientation, it's the next step. The truck gets put on what we call the ready line, and it's waiting for you. Your name is in the window, so you know exactly before anyone says anything, you know what your truck's going to be, allowing you to time individually to go around the truck yourself, but then sitting with you in the truck. It seems like a small step, but it is one of the most important steps. Because if you don't do that, I've been at consulted at carriers where they didn't do that, and it's amazing how many issues an issue equipment wise came up in that first week. Almost the majority of the time, a maintenance issue comes up in that case the first week. Now, doing that walkthrough doesn't mean that it won't happen, but statistically means it's going to happen a lot less.
And that is the number one retention issue is equipment. Not money, but it's the equipment.
Yep. We work with a company that you and I will see later this week called Hello Retention, and they create resolution tickets. So essentially, they talk to our drivers. They don't dispatch you. They don't do any of those things. Their sole job is to talk to you once a week. Some drivers prefer text. Some drivers prefer, other forms of communication like an email, but they want to talk to you on a weekly basis. And on that weekly basis, they want to have, they create resolution tickets. So if there's an issue, and it may be a small issue, it may be a big issue, but internally we have somebody that has ownership and they need to find a solution within 24 hours. And it's a big opportunity for us. Now, two things, and this is not unusual, that normally create an issue. One is pay. And normally it's not that you've been cheated on pay or shorted on pay, but especially for a new hire, it's understanding your paycheck. How did I get paid? How did I come to this number? Especially in the first 30 days, because after about 30 days, they figured it out and okay, I got it. The other one is equipment. And it's normally, and this is where between Hello Retention and our relationship with Penske is identifying we have an issue, how do we address it? Now, Penske is a great partner. If it's a big issue, we'll get a sub truck and they will work on it and get you back to your truck in your engineered lane. Or Penske has financial interests, in fact, in getting to us quickly if, God forbid, you're stuck someplace. But the equipment is always going to be up there with pay. Those two topics are going to be in your first 30 days of employment with almost any trucking company, are probably the number one and number two issues that will come up. And so if you don't address it quickly, it will snowball. By the time I talk to a driver that's calling me up irritated where he's working, then he may be complaining about his dispatcher, the lack of freight. But I guarantee you that's not the reason he's calling. He or she's most likely had 5 or 6 other issues that have led to that one issue to make the phone call happen. And odds are that very first issue was around equipment and pay.
I can attest to this. So we know that Rig on Wheels recruits for quite a few different companies. And we had a driver we were trying to recruit, let's call her Bessie Lou, before we end for today. So we had a driver, Bessie Lou, and we put her in with another company. Her current company was MVT. Well, Merrill and his team got wind that she was looking and had already was, finding out because they're the retention folk, and it was something about our pay and nothing had happened. She just didn't understand something. That's all it was. But either way, they don't explain it. They're just a retention team. So they put in a resolution ticket. That day, the person from whoever department called her, reached out to her, got everything resolved. Let's just say the lady is still at MVT, called Nimmer back and said, I'm happy at MVT. I just didn't understand something. So that's literally all it was. And she didn't feel comfortable enough to call MVT herself. And that's what happens a lot. The drivers they get upset. So they don't call the company themselves, but it was the retention solution team that she actually talked to. So it works. It definitely works. Because, yeah. So I can attest to that.
Hey, we've gone over our time by about 12 minutes. We probably could talk for another hour, but I don't know that we want to set a record today.
Yeah, let's not set a record. We can talk about this at a later date. But so we want everybody to be safe, and we'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. And we're not going to have this like church and go over, like my pastor say, he'll take off his watch and say, let the church say overtime. So we're not going to do that. We're going to stay on target for next week. So everybody be safe, and we'll see you guys next week on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard.